In this video, we're gonna talk about how to calculate the mean of a grouped frequency table. So what we have here is the grades of students, which is 51 to 60, 61 to 70, and so forth. The second column contains the frequency. So this tells us the number of students who scored in this range. For instance, there are 12 students who got a grade of between 71 to 80, and there are 5 students who got a grade of between 91 to 100. So in this data, how we can calculate the average test scores of the students in this class? Now, it is important to understand that we cannot compute an exact mean for the grades in this class. And the reason why that's the case is because we just don't know the individual data values in the dataset. So therefore, we can estimate the mean. Now, we know the mean is basically the sum of all the data values. Divided by the number of data items of the set. But for the grouped frequency table, the mean is gonna be something similar, but that equation will be modified a bit. It's gonna be the sum of the product of the frequency values times the midpoint, because we can't really use individual scores here. So the best individual score would be the midpoint. So to get the midpoint, we're gonna add this and divide it into 2. And we do this with same process here and so forth. So it's gonna be the sum of the frequency times the midpoint divided by the sum of the frequency values. So that's the format we need to use in order to calculate the mean. So let's take this one step at the same time. So let's calculate the midpoint values first. The midpoint, as I said earlier, will be the sum of the lower and upper boundary divided by 2. So here the lower boundary is 51 and the upper boundary is 60 divided by 2. So 111 divided by 2, we get 55.5. So that's the midpoint for this range. And that's what will we do next. So the midpoint here, 61 plus 70 divided by 2 equals 65.5. And then 71 plus 80 divided by 2 will be 75.5. At this point, we see a pattern. The next will be 85.5 and 95.5. Now, our next step is to take the sum of the frequency column. So this will give us 4 plus 10 plus 12 plus 9 plus 5. This tells us how many students are there in class, which is 40. Student in this class is 40. Now, the next thing we need to calculate is the sum of the frequency times the midpoint values. So what we're gonna do is multiply these two. 4 times 55.5. So it is much easier to make an extra column Let's call this FXM. So we're gonna multiply frequency and midpoint. The frequency here is 40. The total frequency rather. So we're gonna multiply frequency times midpoint. So 4 times 55.5, we get 222. And we just continue this. 10 times 65.5 is 655. 12 times 75.5 is 906. 9 times 85.5 is 769.5. Then 5 times 95.5 is 477.5. So now, let's take the sum of FXM column using calculator. So now, we can calculate the mean. So the total that I have is 330. Now, we proceed on calculating the mean. The mean is going to be the sum of the FXM values divided by the sum of the frequency values. We are going to use this formula. So it's gonna be 3030 rather, divided by 40. So before we divide it, where do you think is the mean we're gonna be? Let's set this highest frequency here, which is 12. In between 71 to 80. Because most students scores in this range. So if we take 330 divided by 40, this goes as a mean value of 75.5. 75.75 rather. And that makes sense, since most students, they had a grade between 71 to 80 on a test. So 75.75 is the mean of the grade of students in this class.